People always say malls are dying, but Weston Mall never seemed to get the memo, especially not the week before spring break. The place buzzed like a beehive. Families with shopping bags, kids weaving between benches, teenagers taking pictures near the fountain. To me, it was just background noise. I'd been working at the Breeze Blend smoothie bar for almost 2 years while studying psychology at the nearby community college. Money wasn't great, but the flexible hours kept me afloat. That Thursday, I was running on 4 hours of sleep and a double shot of espresso. The line had finally died down around 7 p.m., and I was wiping counters, counting minutes until closing. My manager had ducked out early for a dentist appointment, leaving me in charge of holding down the fort, which sounded a lot more heroic than the reality of blending strawberries and wiping sticky cups. I was tossing napkins into the trash when I noticed her, a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, sitting alone at a table near the food court railing. Bright yellow coat, light-up sneakers, hair in 2 neat braids. At first, I figured her parents were grabbing food, but 10 minutes passed, then 15. No adult came back. She kept looking over her shoulder toward the escalators, small shoulders trembling every time someone passed by. Something about the way she sat, rigid, hands twisted in her lap, made my stomach tighten. I stepped around the counter and approached slowly. "Hey, sweetheart," I said gently. "You waiting on someone?" She looked up, eyes huge. I can't find my mom." My heart sank. "Okay. What's your name?" She hesitated. "Lila. Do you know your mom's last name?" She shook her head and glanced nervously toward the escalators again. That was when I realized this wasn't just a kid who wandered too far. Something else scared her. Something she wasn't saying. I brought Lila behind my kiosk counter so she wouldn't be visible from the walkway. I handed her a small strawberry smoothie on the house, and she held it with both hands like she was afraid to spill or maybe afraid of being seen. "Can you tell me what happened?" I asked. She spoke barely above a whisper. "I was with my mom near the shoe store. I turned around and she was gone. I waited, but she didn't come back." My chest tightened. It wasn't unusual for kids to get separated in the mall, but she didn't look lost. She looked hunted. I radioed mall security through the kiosk phone. 2 guards arrived within minutes. While I was explaining the situation, a tall man jogged over, breathing hard. "There you are," he exclaimed, pointing at Lila. "I've been looking everywhere. I'm her uncle." Immediately, Lila grabbed my sleeve with a grip so strong I felt her nails through the fabric. "Don't let him," she whispered, trembling. I straightened. "Sir, can you show ID? Or tell us the mother's name?" He waved the question off. "She's in a store somewhere, upstairs, or outside maybe." She stepped off for a second. His eyes darted too fast. His story shifted like loose sand. Security stepped between us. "Sir, we need basic information before releasing her." He scoffed, lifted his hands dramatically and said, "This is ridiculous. You're wasting my time." Then he turned and stormed off, disappearing into the crowd with unnatural speed. Lila burst into tears. Security escorted us to their office and pulled up camera feeds. On screen, the man wasn't walking with her. He was following her for nearly 10 minutes. "Do you know him?" I asked softly. She shook her head. "No. He kept getting closer, so I ran." Fear, real fear, settled into my bones. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Someone had been trying to take her. Security called the police immediately, but response time on a busy Thursday was longer than anyone liked. While we waited, they asked if I'd keep Lila behind my kiosk where she felt safe. I didn't hesitate. I pulled a stool over, let her sit near the back where customers couldn't see. She drew shapes with her finger on the cold metal counter, tiny circles, tiny squares. Every few minutes she'd ask, "Is my mom coming?" And every time it broke me. The mall felt different now. Its bright lights and noisy hallways felt like camouflage, a place where someone could blend in too easily. I felt eyes on us even when I didn't see anyone. Then I did see someone. A man in a black jacket stood near the pretzel stand, half hidden behind a pillar. He wasn't buying anything. He wasn't browsing. He was staring directly at us. I met his gaze. He moved instantly, slipping behind a group of shoppers. My pulse kicked up. I told security, but by the time they got to the pretzel stand, he was gone. Footage showed him ducking into a clothing store but never coming out. Cameras didn't catch him leaving at any exit. What if it's him? I whispered to the guard. They couldn't answer. They didn't know. The mall announced closing in 30 minutes. People trickled out. Stores lowered gates. The place grew quieter, emptier, more sinister. Lila stayed close, fingers hooked in my sleeve. "Can you stay with me?" she whispered. "Of course," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." Every sound made me flinch. A dropped shopping bag, a cleaning cart, wheels squeaking, a door clicking shut. My mind kept replaying the man's stare, the way he vanished, the way Lila clung to me like her life depended on it. Maybe it did. The police arrived close to 10 p.m., long after the mall had mostly emptied. Their radios crackled across the quiet halls as they questioned staff, collected camera angles, and asked Lila gentle questions she barely answered. They put out an alert for the man Lila ran from, matching the uncle impersonator's description, though we couldn't be sure if they were the same person or two separate threats. Both options terrified me. Security swept every wing, every restroom, every emergency stairwell. They found nothing. Around 10:40, a woman burst through the security office doors sobbing. Dark hair, red eyes, desperation pouring off her like a storm. "My baby, please, where is she?" she cried. Lila jumped off the stool and ran to her. The mother dropped to her knees, clutching her so tightly the girl squeaked. "I couldn't find you. Oh my God. Oh my God." Lila broke down crying too. I stepped back to give them space, my own eyes stinging. The mom hugged me without hesitation. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not letting her go with him." The room fell silent. One officer asked her if she knew the man who claimed to be Lila's uncle. "No," she said. "Absolutely not. We don't have any family in this state." Something cold crawled up my spine. Police escorted the mother and daughter out through a private exit, away from the public. Another officer took my statement while I packed up my kiosk. My hands shook the whole time. As I left, I looked once more at the food court, the columns, the escalators, the shadows between stores. Somewhere in that crowd tonight, a man had watched a child, planned something terrible, and walked away without anyone stopping him. The thought hollowed me. Spring break came and went, but I didn't feel the same. The mall didn't feel the same either. I worked fewer closing shifts. The lights felt dimmer. Crowds felt sharper. Every time a child wandered too far from a parent, my chest tightened. 2 weeks later, I was on my lunch break scrolling through my phone when a headline flashed across social media. Attempted child abduction at Clearwater Mall. Suspect matches description of Weston Mall incident. My stomach dropped. Same build. Same behavior. Same vanish into the crowd pattern. The article said a man approached a child near a play area pretending to be a family friend. The child hesitated, cried, and the suspect fled before police arrived. Cameras caught only pieces of him. Dark jacket, hat pulled low. I put my phone down and gripped the table until my fingers hurt. Lila's trembling voice echoed through my memory. "Don't let him." I realized I'd been holding my breath. Slowly, I let it out. For weeks, I replayed that night. How easily things could have gone differently. How close that man had come. How quickly he'd vanished. People imagine abduction attempts as dramatic, loud, violent. But that man didn't scream or chase. He blended in. He waited. He watched from 20 feet away. And in a crowded mall, sometimes that's all it takes. I reported the Clearwater article to the detective handling our case. He thanked me, said they were comparing footage. I didn't ask if they thought they'd catch him. Part of me didn't want to know the answer. Every time I walk through Weston Mall now, I scan faces without realizing it. I watch people who watch children. I listen for the wrong kind of footsteps. I still work the kiosk, but I never forget how Lila's hand gripped mine like I was the only safe thing in the world. And part of me hopes, quietly, desperately, that wherever she is now, she feels safe again. Trust your instincts, especially when something feels off. Danger doesn't always look dramatic or obvious, and protecting someone can start with simply paying attention. Awareness is one of the strongest tools we have. It's funny how adulthood sneaks up on you. One moment you're 18, wandering around campus pretending you know what you're doing, and the next you're 19, juggling classes, rent, and a night shift delivery job at a small Thai restaurant tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop. I'd always been a night person, but there's a difference between being awake at night and working at night. The world feels thinner, quieter, like something is listening. Most nights were uneventful. College kids ordering pad thai at midnight, nurses grabbing quick bites after long shifts, and the occasional drunk guy who thought tipping and compliments counted as actual currency. But that Friday night, just before closing, a massive order came in. No phone number, prepaid. My manager handed me the ticket with a wince. "You sure you're good with this one?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound confident. "Just another delivery." But the address, Maple Ridge Drive, sat way out near the tree line where the streetlights stopped. I'd only been there once before during the day, and even then it felt like the kind of place where houses stared back at you. By the time I got there, the storm rolling in from the west had started spitting cold drizzle across my windshield. The house stood at the end of a long gravel drive, tall and old but not abandoned. At least not at first glance. Every window was dark except for one faint glow upstairs, barely visible through a cracked curtain. I knocked once, twice, called out. No answer. I told myself it was just another weird late-night customer. But the truth was simple. I'd already stepped into something wrong. And the night wasn't done peeling me open. I knocked again, louder this time, shifting the warm delivery bag in my hands. The porch groaned under my weight, the kind of sound wood makes when it hasn't been stepped on in years. I leaned forward and knocked a third time. Nothing. I exhaled, frustrated, and pulled out my phone to call the restaurant, then froze. The porch light flicked on. Not a flicker, not a dim glow, an abrupt click, bright and deliberate. My stomach tightened. I hadn't seen a motion sensor, and it hadn't been on when I walked up. "Hello?" I called. A voice drifted out from behind the door, distant, flat, almost metallic. "Just leave it by the door." It didn't sound like someone actually standing there. More like the voice came through an old intercom or speaker. But I hadn't seen any device, and the words felt wrong, too slow, like someone repeating something they'd practiced. I swallowed. "Sir, I just need to confirm the order. Could you come to the door?" The door creaked open a few inches. Darkness spilled out. No silhouette. No footsteps. Nothing. A chill rolled across my arms. "Just leave it," the voice repeated. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, drop the bag, and run. But my manager hated when drivers didn't finish deliveries. So instead, I crouched, set the food down, and backed away. As I reached the steps, a gust of wind rattled the trees. I jogged to my car, got inside, and flicked on my headlights. The house door was now wide open. No sound, no figure, just the yawning dark of the entryway, like a mouth waiting for something to step closer. I locked my doors. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Something about that voice. It didn't feel like a person speaking. It felt like someone mimicking a person. I tried to start the car. The engine sputtered, coughed, and refused. My pulse hammered. I locked the doors again, even though no one was near the car. Yet. The rain strengthened, streaking the windshield. I glanced back at the house. Nothing moved. But the house didn't feel empty. It felt aware. Come on. Come on, I muttered, twisting the key again. Still nothing. I checked my phone. 1 bar of signal. Just enough to call the restaurant. My manager picked up. You back already? No, I whispered. The address is weird. Someone told me to leave the bag, but no one answered the door. And now my car won't start. There was a long silence. Wait, what was the address again? He asked. Maple Ridge Drive, number 806. His voice dropped. Hang on, let me check the logs. While he searched, movement flickered near the tree line. At first I thought it was wind, then a shape stepped forward. A figure, standing still among the branches, watching. Boss? I whispered. He came back on. Okay, that address was flagged months ago. Multiple fake orders. The driver who took the last one, he paused. Never came back. My breath hitched. The figure took a step toward me, slow and deliberate. I couldn't make out the face, just the outline. Broad shoulders, hood up, moving with purpose. Call 911, my manager said. I hung up and dialed. As I did, the figure circled the car, testing the door handle with a slow click, click, click that echoed under the rain. My phone rattled in my hands. The dispatcher answered. The figure vanished behind my trunk. Red and blue lights appeared down the road. The figure broke into a sprint, straight into the woods. The police arrived minutes later. They confirmed the house had been abandoned for years. But they also found fresh footprints, and they matched a suspect wanted for a string of roadside and home invasion attacks. I didn't sleep that night. And the worst part? My shift wasn't over. The night still had more to show me. The police advised me to stick to well-lit areas and return home immediately. But adrenaline kept me wired, so I returned to the restaurant to finish my shift and calm down. The storm outside grew heavier, thunder rumbling in sheets across the sky. When I arrived, Jake, the cook, was pale, pacing behind the counter. "You're not going to believe what happened here last night," he said. His voice shook, and then he told me. A man soaked from the storm had knocked on the diner door right before closing. Silent, expressionless, deep scratches on his hands, sat in a booth without ordering anything, asked Jake if he was working alone, then just walked out and disappeared into the rain. Jake shuddered. Police showed up this morning. Missing couple, showed me a photo. It was him. I felt my stomach twist. The woods, the house, the figure by my car, and now this stranger appearing during storms. "What did the cops say?" I asked. "They're looking," he said, "but he's always one step ahead." The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Rain pounded the roof so hard it felt like the sky was trying to punch through. "Man," Jake muttered, "night people are different." I didn't disagree. I drove home after we closed, choosing the main roads. No shortcuts, no wooded back routes. Halfway there, I remembered another story I'd heard from a nurse named Leah, how she stopped for what she thought was a stranded driver and ended up fleeing from 3 figures emerging from the woods. I used to think stories like that were exaggerations. Not anymore. The night doesn't hide monsters. It reveals them. For weeks afterward, I avoided late deliveries. I stuck to lunch shifts, bright afternoons, and routes filled with people. But the night stayed with me. The open door, the voice that wasn't quite human, the figure pacing around my car like he had all the time in the world. The police later confirmed the abandoned house was linked to several fake orders. Drivers lured there. Cars tampered with. A suspect seen but never caught. The same one seen near the diner. The same one spotting stranded drivers. He was real, and he was still out there. Sometimes after my shift at the restaurant, I'd sit in my apartment and think about all the stories I'd heard, how many people had been watched, followed, approached, all because they crossed paths with the wrong person at the wrong moment. One night just before bed, I got a call from Jake. Cops found a car by the woods off River Road, he said. Hazard lights still on. Driver's okay. They ran when someone came out of the trees. Same guy? I asked. They think so. After the call, I stood by my window, staring out at the dark street below. Every shadow looked like it might shift. Every movement made my pulse spike. But I learned something important. Fear isn't weakness. It's information. It's your brain screaming, run, move, pay attention. Something is wrong here. And sometimes, listening to that instinct is what saves you, even if you never forget the night you had to. I never thought I'd volunteer for night shift. For 8 years, I was a daylight nurse. Coffees at 6 a.m., morning vitals, doctor's rounds, families crowding the halls, predictable chaos. But when March rolled in with flu season and half our staff called out sick, the manager practically begged for coverage. I told myself 1 week of nights wouldn't kill me. The hospital felt like a different world after midnight. The hallways stretched longer, like they were swallowing sound. The lights dimmed automatically to night mode, giving everything a faint yellow wash. Even the air felt heavier, colder, as if the building held its breath. I was halfway through my first night, moving between cardiology rooms, charting vitals, adjusting IV drips. Most patients slept, monitors beeping their same rhythmic patterns. Around 1 a.m., I reached the far end of the unit, near the old storage closet and room 417. 417 was empty. Had been for weeks. We used it for supply overflow sometimes, but otherwise it stayed shut. Tonight, the door was cracked open. Barely. Just enough to say someone had touched it. I frowned. I'd checked earlier. It was definitely closed. Probably housekeeping, I muttered, pushing it shut. Inside, the room was untouched, bed perfectly made. Still, the privacy curtain was half drawn and moving slightly, like someone had just slipped behind it. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I left quickly and made myself shrug it off. Hospitals breathe, settle, shift. Everyone knows that. Still, something about 417 felt wrong. Too wrong. I wrote it off as nerves. First nights can mess with your head, but by 2 a.m., I would learn it wasn't just in mine. I had just sat down at the nurse's station with cold coffee when my pager vibrated sharply. 417. Assistance needed. I stared at the screen. No patient, no equipment, nothing that could call for help. What the hell? I whispered. Glitch? Asked Dana, one of the night nurses. Maybe, I lied. I'll go check. Walking back toward 417, the temperature dipped. The hallway lights flickered overhead, just once, but enough to make me pause. The kind of flicker that feels intentional even if you know it's not. I pushed the door open. The room felt colder than the hallway, like walking into a freezer. The call button panel on the wall blinked, calling, and the activation light glowed red. The button itself, normally attached to the bed rail, was lying on the floor as if someone had yanked and dropped it. The curtain was now fully closed, completely, a perfect circle of privacy around the bed. Hello? I said softly. Is someone in here? No answer. Just the soft hum of the unconnected monitor. My hand shook as I reached for the curtain. Before my fingers touched the fabric, a voice whispered from behind it. Raspy, weak, close. Don't let him in. My blood went cold. Who's there? I whispered. Silence. I yanked the curtain open. Empty. The bed was still made. The monitor still unplugged. No one behind the curtain. I backed up until I hit the wall, breath shaking. I called maintenance. They insisted the call button had been pressed manually, not tripped by wiring. I didn't argue. I just avoided 417 for the next hour, but the room wasn't done with me. At 3:17 a.m., the door alarm chimed, sharp and sudden. Door 417. Opened inside. My skin prickled. That door required force to push out. It couldn't swing open on its own. Security arrived quickly. Officer Harlan, a big guy with heavy boots and a radio that never stayed quiet, met me outside the room. "You ready?" he asked. "No," I admitted, "but let's go." We stepped inside together. Something was different. Immediately. The bed, perfectly made an hour ago, was now rumpled, sheets twisted like someone had been lying there and gotten up abruptly. The pillow had an indentation, a deep one, like a head had been resting there. "What the?" Harlan whispered. Then we both froze. The monitor, still unhooked, still unplugged, displayed a faint waveform, a heartbeat, slow and irregular, but rhythmic. "Is this thing powered?" he asked. "No, it shouldn't even be on." We both watched the screen as the faint blips continued, then faded, then flatlined. Harlan swallowed. "Didn't someone die in here last year?" I nodded slowly. A man in his 70s. Collapsed during rounds. They found him alone. "What were his last words?" the guard asked. I hated that I remembered. He'd grabbed the night nurse's sleeve and whispered, "Please, don't leave me alone. He's coming back." The same rasp, the same fear. I felt something behind me, movement, like someone pacing slowly from bed to curtain. But when I spun around, nothing was there. We sealed the room, logged everything. Neither of us spoke on the walk back. 417 had been empty for weeks. But something had been in that bed. The rest of the shift crept by, slow and suffocating. I tried to focus on my patients, but every monitor beep made me jump. Every shadow along the hallway wall felt like someone standing still. At 4 a.m., I caught my reflection in the medroom window. Pale, eyes too wide. I didn't look like myself. I looked like someone who'd heard a voice that shouldn't exist. Dana noticed. "You good, Ev?" "Just tired," I said. She didn't believe me. "You look like you saw a ghost." I didn't answer. Near 5 a.m., I walked past 417 again. The door had been newly locked. A printed sign taped up. "Maintenance. Do not enter." But a thin strip of light glowed under the door. Yellow. Soft. Steady. Just like a monitor. I checked the maintenance log. No one had entered since security sealed it. Footsteps echoed behind me. Slow, dragging. I whipped around. No one was there. But the air shifted, cold against the skin on my neck. A whisper trickled from behind 417's door, as faint as breath. "He's coming back." The exact words from last winter, from the man who died alone. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. I wanted to tell someone, but every explanation sounded insane, even to me. When shift change finally arrived, I nearly ran to the parking lot. Morning light had never looked so good. That afternoon, I filed transfer papers. I transferred to outpatient cardiac rehab by the end of the week. Day shifts, bright hallways, 0 empty rooms with flickering lights. I told my manager I needed a change of pace, and she didn't press. But nights still follow me in memory, especially that one. The hospital circulated a quiet memo saying room 417 was closed until structural issues could be addressed. They moved the supplies out, covered the window with privacy film. But nurses on the night shift still talk. They say sometimes the monitor glows even though there's no power. They say the curtain moves, like someone is pacing. They say a faint alarm chimes at exactly 3:17 a.m. Then stops. One night nurse told me, "I swear I heard breathing behind that curtain." I never went back to check. I don't think I ever will. Real or not, something stayed in room 417. Something scared, something waiting, something that whispered warnings into the dark. And sometimes, on quiet nights at my new job, when I walk past empty exam rooms, I think of that voice again. Don't let him in. Part of me wishes I'd asked who him was. The other part is afraid I already know. Never ignore your instincts, whether it's danger, exhaustion, or something that simply feels wrong. Fear is often a signal, not a weakness. Trust it, protect yourself, and don't dismiss what your senses are telling you, even in familiar places where you think you're safe. I never imagined my life would take me 40 feet underground, walking through cold subway tunnels when the rest of the city slept. Growing up in Detroit, I bounced from job to job, warehouse work, delivery driving, loading docks, anything that paid rent on time. When a friend mentioned an opening with the Metropolitan Transit Maintenance Unit, I took the interview before he finished the sentence. Good pay, union benefits, night differentials. I didn't care if it meant getting grease in my hair or mud on my boots. I just needed steady ground. The supervisors liked that I was young, strong, and willing to take the night shifts. Most new guys avoid the graveyard hours, my trainer Harris told me. But that's where you make your money. I'd only been on the job 2 weeks when I volunteered for my first overnight maintenance assignment. The weather outside was warm, early May, but the tunnels were a different world. When we stepped down from the service platform into Sector 10, the cold wrapped around my face like breath from something sleeping in the dark. Sector 12 was my assignment for the night. I didn't know its reputation then, but the older guys joked about it the moment they heard. "You'll hear company down there," Harris said, tapping my helmet. "Footsteps that don't match yours." I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't ignore the way he said it. Not laughing, not warning, just stating it like weather. Around midnight, the supervisor handed me a tool bag. "Malik, check the old junction ahead. Rust spots need reevaluating." I nodded, pretending not to feel the strange unease sinking into my chest as I turned toward the darker part of the tunnel. The overhead lights flickered, then hummed, then dimmed, and for the first time that night, I wondered what exactly waited for me in Sector 12. The deeper I walked, the quieter everything became. Not silent, just quiet in that unnatural way tunnels have, where sounds feel bigger than they should. Every drip echoed off concrete. Every clank of metal sounded like it came from behind me. I tried focusing on the job. Inspect the rails, note corrosion, check bolts, return. Simple. But the moment the tracks curved into Sector 12, a cold draft slid across my neck. I stopped, turned around, and scanned the tunnel with my flashlight. Nothing, only shadows in the weak glow of spaced-out overhead fixtures. Then I heard footsteps, not scuffing, not shifting gravel. Footsteps. Steady, heavy, matching my speed. I spun again, lifting the light. The beam stretched far down the tunnel but revealed no one. "Probably Echo," I muttered, trying to convince myself. I kept walking. The footsteps kept following. This time, they were closer, like someone was only a few yards behind. I forced myself not to turn. I didn't want to see something I couldn't explain. So I picked up the pace, heartbeat pounding, my grip on the tool bag tightening. "You good down there, rookie?" My supervisor crackled through the radio. "Yeah," I lied. "Just checking progress." But before I could speak again, another voice came through. Not his, not any workers I recognized. A whisper, whispering. My name. I froze so hard my boots squeaked on the rail. "Repeat that?" the supervisor asked. I didn't. I couldn't. The footsteps stopped too, as if the thing behind me realized it had been noticed. I forced my feet forward until the old junction came into view. a wide, open curve leading into a service path. Relief washed over me for only a second, because standing at the far end of the tunnel was someone completely still, someone facing me. At first, I thought it was just another maintenance worker. Same reflective vest, same silhouette. But something about the posture was wrong. Too stiff, too straight, like its feet were anchored to the ground. "Hey!" I called out. My voice cracked off the tunnel walls. "You good?" The figure didn't move. I raised my flashlight. The beam cut across rusted rails, dirty concrete, abandoned equipment, and the instant the light touched the figure, it dissolved. Not walked away. Not ducked into a side passage. Just vanished. Like the darkness swallowed it. The breath in my chest turned sharp. My skin prickled as if the air around me changed temperature. Then my radio crackled again. But the voice that spoke wasn't from the radio. It came from the walls, from the steel, from everywhere. "Malik." I stumbled backward, gripping the tool bag like a shield. "Who's there?" I shouted. Silence swallowed the sound, except for a faint hum of electricity above me. My hands trembled. I had never believed in anything paranormal, but nothing about this moment felt normal. Then the footsteps started again. Not behind me this time. Around me. Circling. I bolted. I sprinted back through the tunnel, flashlight swinging wildly, breath rattling in my throat. The footsteps exploded into a violent chase. Fast, heavy, like a giant pounding the ground inches away. I didn't look back. I couldn't. When the lights of the main team finally glowed ahead, everything stopped. The footsteps, the whispers, even the cold. I collapsed to my knees, gasping. Harris jogged toward me. "Whoa, whoa. Malik, what happened?" I couldn't speak. I could only stare at the darkness behind me, waiting for something to step out. The guys gathered around me, their expressions shifting from confusion to concern. My supervisor crouched beside me. "Did someone jump you? Did you fall?" I shook my head. "Something was back there," I said quietly. "Something followed me." Harris didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He just exchanged a long look with the older worker named Cruz, one that made my stomach twist. "Let's take 5, Cruz muttered. "Rookie needs air." They brought me to the service alcove where the noise of machines and generators felt comforting, human, real, warm. Cruz handed me a bottle of water and leaned against the wall. "You heard it, didn't you?" he asked softly. "Heard what?" "The walking. The voice." I stared at him, throat tight. "You've heard it too?" He exhaled slowly. "Everyone who works Sector 12 has. We don't talk about it because the supervisors don't want people quitting." "What is it?" I asked. He shrugged in a helpless way that scared me more than any ghost story. "Some say it's the workers who died in the collapse back in the 70s. Some think it's just the tunnel settling. Me? I don't know. But something moves down there when nothing should. Why didn't anyone warn me? Would you have taken the shift if we did?" I didn't have an answer. Cruz put a hand on my shoulder. "Look, you made it back. That's what matters. Whatever you experienced, it stops when you're not alone. It only follows people walking by themselves." "That's not comforting," I muttered. A faint smile touched his face. "In these tunnels, kid, not alone is about as safe as it gets." We finished our shift without going back into Sector 12. But every time the lights flickered or a pipe clanked, my heart raced, expecting footsteps that never came. Not until later, anyway. I barely slept after that shift. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the footsteps pounding behind me again. My alarm rang at 7 a.m., but I'd already been awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the tunnel in my mind. By noon, I drove back to the maintenance office. My supervisor sat behind his desk, sipping coffee. "You look rough," he said. I need reassignment, I told him. Anywhere but Sector 12. He sighed, rubbed his temples, and nodded. I figured. Most guys ask after their first experience. He didn't say ghost, but the way he avoided the word told me enough. Did you see something when you were new? I asked. He hesitated. Sector 12 changes people. Some hear things, some see things, some quit on the spot. But every person reports the same thing. Footsteps that don't match theirs. I swallowed hard. So you believe me? I believe something's wrong down there. Whether it's haunted or just cursed engineering, I don't know. He signed a form and slid it toward me. You're assigned to open-air work near the river stations. Day shifts only for the next month. Relief washed through me so fast it almost knocked the air from my lungs. As I walked out of the office, I passed Harris. He clapped my shoulder. You lasted longer than I did, he said. My first night down there, I didn't even make it to the junction. I managed a small laugh. Thanks for not telling me beforehand. You wouldn't have believed me anyway. He was right. I never returned to Sector 12 after that day. But sometimes, late at night, when the city is quiet and the streets outside my apartment are still, I swear I hear faint footsteps behind me. Steady, patient, waiting for me to turn around. I don't. I keep walking. And I never walk alone. Trust your instincts, even when logic tells you to brush them off. Fear is often the body recognizing danger before the mind understands it. In work, in life, and in dark places underground, listening to your intuition can be the difference between safety and harm. Long before the incident, the fourth floor was already a piece of office folklore, one of those stories new hires whispered about during onboarding lunches. I'd heard it a dozen times. There had been a small electrical fire in the early 90s. Nobody died, but the floor supposedly never felt right afterward. Lights flickered, printers jammed, people heard voices in rooms that were locked. Every office had a ghost story, and ours just happened to live one level above the cafeteria. I never believed any of it. My name is Mia Turner, and I'm the sort of person who alphabetizes my spice rack and reads safety manuals for fun. Ghosts weren't on my list of concerns. When the company merged 2 departments last October and moved the overflow staff to the unused 4th floor, I was the first to shrug off the jokes and say, I'll go. A staircase isn't going to kill me. The move went smoothly until inventory season hit. Boxes of old equipment, outdated training binders, and enough tangled HDMI cords to strangle an elephant were dumped on the 4th floor, waiting for someone to sort them. Naturally, I volunteered. I liked the quiet. I liked being left alone to work without someone hovering over my shoulder. That evening, as the sun slid behind the downtown skyline, the motion sensor lights buzzed overhead. Half of them flickered like they were wired by a drunk electrician. It didn't bother me. Old buildings did that. I rolled up my sleeves, opened the first crate, and tried to ignore the tooth-edge chill that crept through the hallway whenever the lights dimmed. I figured it was just autumn air leaking through bad insulation. I had no idea the night was about to prove me wrong. About an hour in, the floor settled into that stillness. Big buildings get after business hours. Quiet, but not empty. Air ducts rattled. Vents sighed. I kept working, counting outdated monitors and jotting notes on a clipboard. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Nathan. Still alive up there? I rolled my eyes and typed back, "Yes, you dramatic fool." That's when I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping. Typing. Coming from somewhere behind me. I froze. None of the computers on this floor were plugged in. It had double-checked every outlet that morning. I called out, "Hello? Is someone still here?" Silence answered me, followed by another quick burst of keystrokes. I walked toward the sound, my sneakers squeaking on the waxed floor. The row of desks along the north wall sat abandoned, monitors dusty, cables coiled neatly in labeled bags. but one chair was turning, slowly, like someone had just pushed off from the desk a second earlier. "Very funny," I muttered, expecting Nathan or someone from HR to pop out laughing. No one did. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. I backed away, forcing a laugh I didn't feel. "Okay, enough. I'm leaving." I grabbed my backpack and headed for the elevator. My thumb jabbed the call button. The doors slid open with a cheerful ding, but when I stepped inside and hit lobby, the doors slid halfway shut, then jerked back open. I tried again, same thing. It felt like someone kept trying to get inside with me. "Oh, come on," I whispered. I stepped back into the hallway, choosing stairs instead. The door to the stairwell felt colder than the rest of the floor. I pushed it open anyway, telling myself I was being ridiculous. Then I heard footsteps behind me. At first, I thought it was echo. Old stairwells do that. But these weren't delayed or distorted. They were close enough that when I stopped, they stopped. When I continued, they matched my rhythm perfectly. My breath quickened. "Hello? Who's there?" I shouted down the stairwell. My voice bounced around the concrete shaft but returned empty. I gripped the railing and picked up speed. The footsteps followed. Not rushed, but deliberate. Steady, almost patient. I could feel something behind me, not touching, just trailing me like a shadow with weight. By the 6th floor landing, I was sweating through my jacket. "This is stupid," I muttered. "It's in your head." But my brain didn't believe my mouth. When I reached the 5th floor, the lights above me flickered in a perfect vertical line, one by one, like a person walking through them. I stared upward, heart hammering. The lights weren't flickering randomly. They were responding to movement. Something was there, unseen but undeniably present. I ran. My shoes slapped the metal steps, breath tearing out of me in wild bursts. The footsteps behind me quickened too, closing in. I didn't dare look back. Every survival instinct in my body screamed, "Don't turn around." I burst through the 2nd floor landing, shouldered the heavy door, and sprinted the final flights. By the time I slammed through the lobby stairwell door, I nearly collapsed onto the polished tile. Security guards leapt from their desk, startled by my pale, shaking form. "Miss Turner? Are you okay?" one asked. I wasn't alone up there," I gasped. But the stairwell behind me was silent. The guard sat me down, gave me water, and radioed building management. Within minutes, we were all huddled around the security monitors. I replayed the footage with one hand pressed to my chest, willing my heartbeat to slow down. The camera showed me entering the stairwell on the 4th floor, alone, descending, alone, stopping on the 6th floor landing, alone, except not quite. At the exact moment I paused, a cluster of lights several steps above me flickered, not randomly, but in a shape. A vertical outline, tall, roughly human. When I moved, the lights followed the outline's path, reacting to something invisible the way motion detectors react to bodies. I covered my mouth. "Oh my God," a guard muttered. "That's not an electrical issue." The building manager, a practical man who smelled like coffee and carpet cleaner, rubbed his face. "We've had reports over the years. Nothing like this, though." "I'm not going back up there," I said firmly. My voice cracked on the last word. "You won't have to," he said. "We're closing the floor first thing tomorrow." They escorted me to my car that night. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting footsteps to appear behind me again. Every shadow looked too deep. Every light flicker made my stomach twist. When I finally got home, I locked my door twice. I slept with the hallway light on, and for the first time since moving to the city, I understood why some people were afraid of the dark. It's not the darkness itself. It's the possibility that you're not alone inside it. Autumn passed in a blur after that night. HR told everyone the 4th floor had been decommissioned for safety concerns, but the rumor mill filled in the rest. Some believed me. Some joked about ghosts. Some tiptoed around the subject like saying the wrong thing might invite something unwanted into their cubicles. As for me, I avoided elevators for months. I avoided empty offices even longer. Every time a motion sensor light clicked on unexpectedly, my pulse jumped. I kept telling myself it was just trauma, not something following me, but I still parked closer to the building, still texted coworkers before leaving late. One evening in December, I worked a little later than usual. The cleaning crew had already left. The whole floor was silent except for the hum of the HVAC. I packed up quickly, slung my bag over my shoulder, and headed for the stairs. Halfway down, in the echoing quiet, I paused, just to listen. No footsteps followed. No lights flickered. No cold draft curled around me. For the first time since October, the building felt normal again. Safe, even. I walked into the lobby, nodded to the security guard, and stepped out into the crisp winter night. The air stung my cheeks, but it felt clean, real, alive. Somewhere above me, the sealed fourth-floor windows reflected the city lights. Whatever had lingered there, whatever had made the air feel heavy and watched, that was its place, not mine. And I intended to keep it that way. Even the bravest people can ignore their instincts, but fear often exists to protect us. Trust the warnings your mind and body give you, because sometimes the danger you can't see is the one you need to take the most seriously.
If you asked anyone at Stanton and Wells Financial where the weird part of the building was, they'd all point to the same place. The old, third-floor archive room. It didn't match the rest of our sleek glass and chrome corporate tower. While the upper levels smelled like citrus cleaner and new carpet, the third floor smelled like old paper, warm dust, and forgotten years. I'd worked in HR for almost 6 years, but I rarely had a reason to go down there. My name is Mia Hartley, and I was the one people trusted with tedious administrative jobs. I was organized, patient, and unfortunately very available at the end of the fiscal year. That's how I ended up being assigned to scan thousands of old HR files from decades before I was even born. My manager told me, "It's quiet down there. You'll get so much done." Which should have been a warning, not a selling point. I started the project in October, when the building emptied early and the sun vanished before most of us left for the day. The first night I hauled my laptop, scanner, and coffee to the third floor. I already felt the temperature drop. The motion sensor lights flickered awake like they resented me for coming. Just files, I told myself. Just dead trees and boring paperwork. But the place never felt empty. Every sound vent rattles, pipes settling. The hum of the scanner echoed through the aisles of metal cabinets like whispers on repeat. I tried to shake it off. It was an old floor, that was all. Still, something crawled under my skin, a feeling I couldn't name. Before the week was over, I'd wish I'd listened to it. My first night went smoothly enough until around 10 p.m., when the floor got so quiet it felt unnatural. I was scanning employee files from 1992 when I heard a metallic slide. The distinct sound of a cabinet drawer rolling open somewhere behind me. I stood up quickly. "Hello? Anyone else working late?" No answer. I walked down the nearest aisle. All the drawers were closed tight. Nothing looked out of place. I even tugged on a few handles just to reassure myself. Back at my workstation, my stomach dropped. A folder lay open across my desk. I hadn't taken it out. I hadn't even been scanning from that cabinet. I picked it up cautiously. It belonged to a woman who left the company 30 years earlier. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, just a standard separation. "Okay," I whispered. "Maybe I grabbed this earlier and forgot. Except I don't forget things like that. It's why they picked me for this project." I kept working, but every so often I'd feel something shift in the stillness as if the room itself was paying attention. A paper rustling behind me, the crackle of an overhead light, a quiet tapping like someone's shoe heel against the floor. Just before I left, I swear I heard someone breathe. Soft, almost thoughtful. I whipped around. No one. The aisles yawned back at me, empty and endless. When I reported to the security desk on my way out, the guard raised an eyebrow. "You sure you were the only one up there?" "Yes," I said. "I think." But I didn't sound convinced, and I wasn't. The second night I came armed with energy drinks, headphones, and determination. I was going to finish 3 boxes that night, maybe 4, and prove to myself the first night had been nothing but nerves. That confidence lasted maybe 20 minutes, because the footsteps started again slow, deliberate, pacing up and down the aisles behind me. I pulled my headphones off immediately. The footsteps stopped. When I stood up, silence. When I sat back down and resumed scanning, the steps resumed too. Like whoever or whatever was there didn't want to be interrupted. Cut it out, I muttered to the empty room, hoping anger would be stronger than fear. It wasn't. Around midnight, I opened a top drawer and found something odd. A file sticking out as if someone had tugged it forward moments before I arrived. The label read, Dalton, Eric, employee record. 1,989. I frowned. Who the hell is Eric Dalton? I placed the file back inside, slid the drawer shut firmly, even tugged it again to confirm it latched. 30 minutes later, when I turned around, the same drawer was open, wide open, the Dalton file sticking out like a finger pointing accusingly at me. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. Nope, no, absolutely not. I shut it again hard enough that the metal clanged, but before the night was over, I'd see it open 2 more times. By the time I packed up, my nerves felt like frayed electrical wires. I left the lights on behind me, refusing to walk down the aisles in darkness, and as I stepped into the stairwell, I had the chilling sense that something was watching me leave. By the 3rd night, I told myself I was imagining everything. Stress, fatigue, too much caffeine, but the moment I reached the 3rd floor, the lights flickered in a ripple from the far aisle toward me like something had walked through before I arrived. Stop it, I whispered. I wasn't sure if I meant the floor or myself. I forced myself to work. I scanned file after file, determined to get through the night without glancing over my shoulder every 5 seconds. Around 11 p.m., the breathing started. Not mine, not the building vents. This was close, too close. I felt a warm exhale hit the back of my neck, as if someone stood inches behind me. I spun around so fast my chair rolled backward. Nothing, just shadowy aisles stretching into dim yellow light. Okay, I said shakily. I'm leaving. Tonight's done. I gathered my things and headed to the door. It didn't move. I shoved harder. The handle rattled. The frame groaned. It felt like something heavy pressed against the other side, refusing to let me out. Adrenaline surged. I slammed my shoulder into it once, twice. On the 3rd hit, the door gave way suddenly, and I stumbled into the hallway, nearly falling to my knees. The hallway lights felt blinding compared to the archive gloom. I didn't go back in. Not that night. Not ever. When I came in the next morning, bleary-eyed and running on 4 hours of sleep, I found something waiting on my desk. A manila folder, crisp, centered perfectly. Eric Dalton terminated the 14th of December, 2089, and beneath the date, written in messy handwriting, "Don't work alone." I stared for several seconds before touching it. My fingers trembled. I checked the hallway, the nearby cubicles, the glass conference room across from me. No one was around. I marched straight to HR records. "Do we have someone named Eric Dalton on file?" I asked. The clerk scanned the system, brow furrowing. No, Dalton. Not even historically. Are you sure you spelled it right?" "Positive." Security reviewed the entry logs and camera footage. No one had accessed the 3rd floor after I left. No one had accessed my office, either. Yet the file was undeniably real: yellowed edges, typed pages, an old photograph stapled inside of a man I didn't recognize. My manager didn't believe me. Not fully. She said things like, "It must have been misfiled for years," or, "Someone is playing a prank." But no one joked after seeing the fear on my face. Within a week, my transfer request was approved. I don't scan old files anymore, and I haven't set foot on the 3rd floor since. Sometimes, though, when I'm working late in my new department, I still feel someone watching from just beyond the cubicle wall, and the hairs on my neck stand up exactly the way they did the night the breathing began. Never ignore your instincts. Whether danger is physical or unseen, your intuition often recognizes the truth long before your mind is ready to accept it. I've worked in IT long enough to know that most urgent problems are usually caused by someone unplugging something, panicking, and blaming the universe. Still, when I was offered a 2-week freelance gig at the Street, Meridian Hotel, a place so polished it made even my best shoes look cheap, I took it. Good pay, fancy setting, and a chance to look like I actually belonged somewhere important for once. Before the conference rushed in, I arrived early to prep the network. The lobby smelled like eucalyptus and polished brass. Staff glided around like they'd been trained in some secret hospitality dojo. Even the elevators looked smarter than me, black glass panels, soft lighting, and these tiny humming motors you could barely hear. I met the hotel's event manager, Angela, who told me, "As long as you keep the servers stable, we'll stay out of your hair." She gave me a badge and a map of the floors, though I didn't need it, not like I'd ever go wandering. Big hotels freak me out after midnight. Too many empty spaces, too many doors, too much silence. The first night went fine. On the second night, a stray power surge on the 18th floor server closet kept me working until nearly 1:30 a.m. The hallway up there felt abandoned, too quiet for a place known for high-end conferences. I remember thinking the air felt oddly cold, not like the usual hotel AC. I shrugged it off, tightened one more rack screw, and headed out. What happened next wasn't part of any job description. It was the moment I realized that sometimes the worst glitches aren't inside the machines but inside the places we think we understand. By the time I reached the elevator, the halls were empty enough that my footsteps sounded like someone else's shadowing me. I pressed the call button, expecting at least a second of delay, but the doors opened instantly, too instantly, like it had been waiting. I stepped in, hit lobby, and leaned back against the railing, exhausted. The elevator hummed downward, smooth, predictable, comforting. Then it stopped at floor 14, a floor I didn't request. The doors slid open to a dim hallway. No lights, no cleaning carts, no soft hotel music. Just a long stretch of darkness and that distant mechanical hum the hotel always had, but lower, almost like breathing. "Come on, man," I muttered, jabbing the close door button. Nothing. The hallway lights flickered one sharp blink like they were reacting to something stepping in. A cold draft brushed the back of my neck, and it felt like someone had just stood behind me. "Door, close, please," I whispered, trying to laugh at myself and failing. The doors finally eased shut, slow as melting ice, and the elevator jerked upward, not down, upward. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. The Meridian didn't have a 19th floor. I'd upgraded their network maps myself. Yet here I was, ascending past blueprints and logic like it was no big deal. The panel lights dimmed to a sickly orange. The elevator's motor whined. My throat tightened. "Hey!" I yelled. "Anybody in control can stop this thing?" No answer. Then the elevator halted, with a soft chime that felt sarcastic. Asterisk, asterisk, floor, 23, asterisk, asterisk. A floor that didn't exist, at least not in any world I trusted. The doors opened, and I instantly wished they hadn't. The corridor ahead of me wasn't just abandoned, it felt forgotten. The red emergency lights buzzed, flickering like they were running on decades-old wiring. The wallpaper peeled in long strips, revealing stained concrete underneath. The carpets had dark patches that looked like spills no one cared to clean. But the worst part was the shape at the far end, a hunched figure, facing the wall, completely still. At first, I tried rationalizing it. A cleaner? A drunk guest? Someone who got lost? Yet every explanation died as soon as I noticed the posture. The figure's spine curved at unnatural angles, like someone had bent backward and never stood straight again. "Hey," I called out, my voice cracking. "You okay?" No answer. I pressed the elevator buttons again, every one of them hoping something would react. None lit up. The elevator stayed open, forcing me to stare down that nightmare hallway like it wanted me to watch. And then the figure moved. Not its body, just its head. It rotated toward me, slow and stiff, until I saw the outline of a face that didn't look fully shaped, like someone had started sculpting it and quit halfway. My lungs tightened. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. I hit the close button again and again. Close. Close. Come on. Close. The figure began walking, one dragging step at a time, its feet scraping the floor like they were too heavy or too broken to lift. The lights flickered. The elevator stayed open. I felt the air around me thin, pressing against my chest. Just before the figure reached the threshold, everything went dark. Everything vanished into black silence except my own heartbeat punching rhythm into my skull. I swear I felt someone or something standing inches from me in the dark. My fingers trembled against the railing. I didn't breathe. I didn't dare. Then brightness, cold, sterile elevator lighting snapped back on, and the doors were open. But I wasn't on floor 23. I was in the lobby. Morning sunlight streamed through the glass doors. The front desk buzzed softly with new shift employees. A bellhop stood nearby, holding a stack of luggage carts. When he saw me, his eyebrows shot up. "Sir, are you all right?" I stepped out, knees wobbling. What time is it?" 7:30. Morning shift just started. Morning. I had been in that elevator for 6 hours. 6 hours that felt like 6 minutes. A manager approached, wanting to file an incident report. Security pulled elevator logs. I watched them scroll through data. No stops between 18 and lobby. No error. No record. Angela put a hand on my shoulder. "Lucas, maybe you passed out. Long hours can do that." I almost believed her until a maintenance tech whispered to another, "That's the third elevator glitch this month." I quit, on the spot. Told them to mail my final check. I didn't explain why. I didn't owe them that. But even as I walked out, I felt like something was watching me from the elevator display, like a face pressing against the other side of the silver doors, waiting to see if I'd turn back. I tried not to think about the elevator, or floor 23, or that twisted figure. I tried to chalk it all up to exhaustion, stress, overwork, but you can't lie to yourself forever. Not when the memory hits like a cold blade against the spine. 2 nights later, I got a text from Angela. "Lucas, not sure if you heard, but something weird happened tonight. Staff says the elevator kept stopping on floors that don't exist. One bellhop swears he heard someone breathing on the other side. Just checking if you're doing okay." I stared at the message until my phone went dim. I didn't respond. Some things don't need explanations, they only need distance. But the dreams followed. Dreams of endless red hallways. Dreams of that figure walking toward me. Dreams where I'm back in the elevator, pressing every button, and none of them light up. Last week, I woke up at 3:14 a.m., the exact time I first stepped into that elevator, and my bedroom felt too cold, like hotel AC humming through vents that didn't exist. Maybe I brought something back with me. Maybe places can latch onto people. Or maybe some elevators don't take you to floors, they take you to moments you were never meant to see. I haven't ridden an elevator since. Not at work, not in malls, not anywhere. And every time I pass a reflective surface, I swear I see a figure standing just a step behind me, waiting for the doors to open again. Sometimes the places we trust the most, places built for safety, comfort, and routine, can hide dangers we don't understand. Stay aware, trust your instincts, and never ignore the moments your mind warns you that something isn't right. Fear isn't always weakness. Sometimes, it's survival. I've worked a lot of jobs since dropping out of community college: warehouse shifts, gas station clerk, temp gigs, but nothing fit quite like the custodial job at Maplewood Mall. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, steady, and didn't require pretending I knew what I wanted in life. The best part was the night shift. 3 times a week, after the mall closed, it was just me, my headphones, the hum of distant HVAC units, and the soft glow of emergency lights. I actually looked forward to it. No customers, no supervisors pacing behind me, and no coworkers asking why I was still single. The security guys knew me by name, and the food court always smelled faintly of cinnamon, even after everything shut down. It was peaceful, almost meditative. People always imagine malls as chaotic and full of life, but at night they feel like giant, sleeping machines. Doors locked, escalators shut off, fountains drained, everything frozen until morning. That Thursday night started normal enough. I clocked in, grabbed my cart, and did my usual loop. Empty trash cans, sweep tile, check bathrooms, mop anything sticky. Nothing unusual, nothing strange. Looking back, I guess you could say the mall felt colder than usual. The kind of cold that makes you pull your shoulders up without realizing. But I didn't think much of it. Old buildings shift temperature all the time. If I'd known what I was about to experience, I never would have worked that shift alone. I never would have walked into that empty food court humming along to my playlist. And I definitely wouldn't have looked up, because the moment I did, everything changed. It began with a glimpse, just a shape on the second floor. A woman in a gray coat, hood pulled low, moving like she wasn't touching the floor at all. I froze mid-sweep, squinting toward the upper level. At first, I thought she was a lost shopper who didn't hear the closing announcements. But the way she moved, it wasn't right. Her steps didn't make sound. Her body didn't shift with weight. She just glided along the railing like she was on a conveyor belt no one else could see. "Ma'am?" I called out. "Mall's closed. You're gonna have to head to the exits." She didn't turn, didn't acknowledge me, just kept drifting, slow and steady. "Seriously?" I tried again, raising my voice. "You can't be up there." Nothing. I felt annoyance rising. This wasn't my job, so I radioed security. A guy named Paul answered. "We'll sweep the upper level," he said, half asleep. 5 minutes later, he and another guard walked the entire floor. They checked every corner, every bench, even the service corridors, but they found nothing. "No one up here, Trent," Paul said through the radio. "You sure you saw somebody?" I laughed it off. "Yeah, I'm not hallucinating yet, but something about the emptiness above me made my skin crawl." I tried shaking the feeling and got back to work, sweeping toward the loading docks. That area always creeped me out. Too many shadows, too much echo. While emptying a trash bin, I heard footsteps behind me, slow, uneven steps. When I turned, the woman was there again. She stood perfectly still between two vending machines, hood hiding her entire face. "Hey," I said quietly. "How did you?" Before I could finish, she tilted her head, not like a normal person, more like a stiff hinge being forced. Then she whispered in this faint, dragging voice, "Don't be here after 1:15. I blinked in confusion, and in that blink, she disappeared, just gone. No footsteps, no door opening, nothing. My heart thudded in my ears. For maybe a full minute I just stood frozen, staring at the spot where she had been. My cleaning cart's wheels squeaked as I slowly backed away, my hand shaking enough to rattle the broom against the bin. I checked my phone. 1:14 a.m. 1 minute until whatever she was warning me about, or threatening me with. I didn't know which. Suddenly the ground trembled with a low vibration, almost like a truck engine idling somewhere deep in the building. I felt it through my shoes. Then came a metallic groan from the hallway, long, painful, like steel grinding. The overhead lights flickered violently. Shadows snapped across the floor. I turned just in time to see the loading dock gate, a heavy, old metal gate, start dropping. Fast, much faster than normal. "Come on, come on!" I shouted as I sprinted. My feet slapped the tile. I pushed myself harder than I ever had in my life. Lungs burning, the gate slammed down a split second after I cleared it. The force rattled the walls. Dust puffed up in a thick cloud. If I had hesitated, even for a breath, I would have been crushed. I stumbled back, panting, staring at the gate like it was some hungry thing that had nearly taken a bite out of me. 2 security guys rushed over after hearing the noise. I explained everything, what I saw, what I heard, the gate dropping, but they shook their heads. "That gate is electronically locked after 1, Paul said. "It can't move." "Well, it did," I snapped, and it almost flattened me. They exchanged a long look, not disbelief, fear. I think they knew something was wrong long before I did. The next night, I had a choice: come back to work, or pretend the flu hit me out of nowhere. I chose both. I called in sick, claimed a fever, and asked if someone could take my shift. My coworker, Jeremy, offered. Jeremy was one of those guys who believed nothing supernatural or weird could touch him. He once slept an entire shift in the maintenance closet and blamed the mop bucket when he got caught. If anyone could walk through Maplewood Mall at night without worrying, it was him. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed on my nightstand. "Jeremy, dude, I keep hearing footsteps upstairs. Thought it was you messing with me." My hands went cold. I typed back immediately, "If you see a woman in a gray coat, leave the building right away." No reply. I stared at my screen for 30 minutes, imagining every awful possibility. I even considered driving back to the mall, but fear kept me glued to my bed. Jeremy finally texted the next morning. He said he'd seen her only once, standing completely still in front of a closed clothing store on the upper level. Like she was waiting for someone to walk past, he wrote. He told the manager he wanted reassignment, said he'd never work nights again. Neither did I. A week later, during a regular daytime shift, a teenage girl approached the info desk shaking. She said she saw a woman in a gray coat walking along the upper level even though the second floor was closed for maintenance. By the time security checked, the level was empty. I quit Maplewood Mall entirely 2 weeks later. The manager thought I was overreacting. "Workers get spooked sometimes," he said, shrugging. "Big buildings echo. People imagine things. But I knew what I saw. I knew what Jeremy saw. And I knew that if she hadn't warned me at 1:15, I might not be alive." I started working mornings at a local hardware store. Less pay, worse hours, but fewer shadows. Yet even now, whenever I walk into a big quiet space, a stairwell, a parking garage, a store before opening, I get that same cold heaviness in my chest, the feeling that something is watching from just behind the dimmest corner. Sometimes, while grabbing lunch at the mall food court with friends, I catch glimpses on the second floor. Just movement, nothing distinct. But every time I look again, there's nothing there. Paul once told me the mall was built over old utility tunnels no one used anymore. Weird stuff happens at night in old places, he said. Buildings remember things. I don't know what the woman in gray was or is. A warning? A leftover memory? Someone who died in one of those tunnels long before the mall ever opened? All I know is that she wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to save me. But that only makes it worse. Because if she was trying to protect me, then something else in that mall wasn't. I always said the night shift at Miller's Diner was peaceful. Boring sometimes, sure, but predictable. I'd take the smell of burnt coffee and a quiet grill over the chaos of daytime crowds any day. Most nights I'd wipe down the counters, restock napkins, and listen to old rock songs on the tiny radio under the register. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid my rent and kept me from sitting alone in my apartment overthinking life. But that Thursday night, things weren't normal. A thunderstorm slammed the town, turning Main Street into a river of silver reflections. Lightning cracked so close the windows rattled. The lights inside flickered every few minutes, long enough to make me freeze and wait for total darkness. Around 11:50 p.m., I was refilling the ketchup bottles when I noticed a shape outside the glass door. A man stood there, soaked from head to toe, rain running off his jacket like he'd climbed out of a lake. He knocked once, slow and heavy. I hesitated, debating if I should pretend I didn't see him, but guilt won over fear. I pushed the door open and stepped aside. "You can come in until the storm passes," I told him. He nodded once but said nothing. He moved to the nearest booth and sat stiffly, dripping water onto the vinyl seat. No order, no greeting, just silence. I'd had strange customers before, but something about him made the air feel colder, like the storm had followed him inside. I brought him a towel from the back room, something we usually used for spills. "You okay, man?" I asked. "Rough night?" He didn't answer. He just stared through the window at the lightning, his hands resting on the table. That's when I noticed the scratches, deep, raw cuts across his knuckles and wrists. They weren't the kind you get from tripping or bumping into something. They looked like he'd clawed his way through something. "You need help?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Still nothing. The storm roared outside, and the diner lights flickered again. When they came back on, he finally shifted his gaze toward me. His eyes were blank, like he was listening to something far away. "You, here alone?" he asked quietly. His voice was low, almost swallowed by the thunder. The question froze me. My hand tightened around the towel. "Just me until morning," I lied. "Cook's in the back." There was no cook. I'd been alone since 8 p.m., but something told me he didn't need to know that. A faint smile touched the corner of his lips, quick, unnatural, like someone imitating a smile rather than feeling one. "I see," he whispered. I stepped back toward the counter, pretending to check the register. Every instinct in me screamed to keep distance. The diner suddenly felt too small, too quiet. Then, without a word, he stood up. The stranger slid out of the booth with a strange stiffness, like every movement was slightly delayed. He left the towel on the seat, still dripping onto the floor. "You sure you're all right?" I called out, forcing the words past the knot in my throat. He didn't answer. He walked toward the front door, his boots squeaking across the tiles. I didn't move to stop him. Part of me was relieved. Another part felt like letting him leave was a mistake. He paused with his hand on the doorframe. Thunder exploded overhead, and the lights flickered again. For half a second, lightning illuminated his face. His expression had changed. There was something almost satisfied in his eyes. Then he stepped out into the rain. I hurried to lock the door behind him, but when I looked outside again, he was gone. Not walking down the street, not running, just gone. The diner felt painfully silent afterward. For the rest of the night, every thunderclap made me jump. I kept replaying his question times. "Are you alone?" Asterisk. By dawn, I convinced myself I'd overreacted. He was just a weird guy caught in a storm, I told myself. No crime in that. People get strange when they're scared or cold, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I didn't know how wrong I was until the police arrived the next morning. I was wiping down the counter after my shift when 2 police officers stepped inside. One of them, a tall woman with a tired expression, asked, "Were you working last night?" "Yeah," I said. "Why?" She exchanged a look with her partner before pulling a photo from a folder. "We're looking for this man. He and his wife were reported missing yesterday afternoon." My stomach dropped. In the picture, he wasn't soaked or smiling faintly. He looked normal, clean-shaven, calm, alive. "That's him," I said instantly. "He came in during the storm." Both officers leaned forward. The woman asked, "Did he say anything to you? Did he seem hurt?" I told them everything, how he stared out the window, the scratches on his hands, how he vanished into the rain. The officers wrote notes quickly, their faces growing more serious with each detail. The woman finally asked, "Did you see anyone else with him?" "A woman?" "No," I said. "Just him." Her jaw tightened. They searched the area behind the diner, asked nearby businesses about surveillance footage, and left with a warning. "If he comes back, call us. Immediately." I nodded, but my mind kept drifting back to his scratches, and that quiet question, "Are you alone?" That night replayed in my head for days, every detail, every sound. I kept trying to convince myself he was just in shock from the storm, or maybe running from something. But the truth wouldn't let go. Something was off about him, something beyond fear or confusion. About a week later, the police returned. They didn't look hopeful. The woman officer told me they'd found the couple's car near an embankment outside town. The wife was missing. The husband, the man I'd seen, had been spotted wandering several miles away earlier that night, disoriented and injured. But after leaving the diner, he vanished again. "People do strange things when they're desperate," she said. But her tone told me she didn't believe desperation created the look I saw in his eyes. For a long time, I avoided working during storms. I'd close early, pretend the fryer broke, anything to avoid another night like that. Even now, whenever lightning flashes, I see that faint smile, quick, unnatural, almost proud. I don't know what happened to him or what he wanted from me, but I know one thing. If I hadn't lied about the cook in the back, I'm not sure I'd be here telling this story. Trust your instincts. When a situation feels wrong, even if you can't explain why, listen to that instinct. It's better to act cautiously than to become another unanswered question in someone else's story.